there's one thing to deal with customer service. It's another thing to do to activate new leads and to actually increase your ability to convert people into revenue. There's also an opportunity to actually expand your business by creating new business opportunities. All of this comes from a commitment to community. This is not necessarily something you want to outsource always. When you insource it, at least you know who they are. When you outsource it, it's like writing a blank check. It has benefits. I mean, I sit in Zula in New York sits inside of Y&R in New York City, and for the last 2 summers, I have twin sons, and they've been interning at Y&R. And what I find very interesting is that for the summer, Y&R has wonderful interns from all across America who come in to intern, and these kids get social, and they're put on certain key accounts. And no one wants to talk about it publicly, but when they lose these summer interns, they actually lose a lot about the ability to connect on a brand level, because these kids get it, and some people who are older, it's they understand that, but they're not doing it. And so I'm just wondering amongst you guys, I mean, do you find community to be important? Do you find something something that you're personally doing? And how do you, to the people that are in this audience who are not doing community, who don't have an active community manager, what's your advice? So maybe Carol.
So, first of all, I'd like to say, I'd like to reinforce something that Jeff said really early on from the start of the panel, and that connects to the notion of community. All of us sitting in this room, I'm assuming all social media advocates, right? The question in the panel was, have we reached the summit? Of course, working for LinkedIn, I can tell you it's only the beginning. That's my impression. And the one thing that really inspired me right from the beginning of this panel is what Ta said, presenting Jeff. She said, Jeff is someone who inspires me. And Jeff mentioned the return on inspiration, which made every one of you smile.
I believe that.
I know you do. And one of the things going forward that will matter to all of us, whether we manage community or not, to me, boils down to exactly what's been said about inspiration. It's going to be, when you manage a community, to me, it's going to be about how much inspiration that you are providing. And that comes from your personal experience on social media. When you look at it, social media is only 7 years. I mean, LinkedIn is 10 years. But the social media being mainstream in everyday lives, it's 7 years, right? So when you think about it, this phenomenon of social media has enabled us from a personal point of view to understand what are the benefits of social media. It's now up to us as individuals who work for companies to leverage that experience and make that experience beneficial for our brands and our companies. And inspiration for me is the top thing that we have to keep in mind when we manage community. There's a second thing, which to me is going to be really visible in the next 10 years, is that relationships matter. So when Jeff mentioned a few examples about his experience online and his journey in the past year, what matters at a personal level will matter at a company level as well. So at LinkedIn, we have as a mantra that relationships matter, because our entire product spectrum is built around relationships, right? So now, going forward, when you're going to call people to place a sales call, you're not just going to call people cold, right? You're going to leverage your network and see who you know from this company who might be a good introduction to the person you want to talk to. And that's how two things from a personal experience, inspiration, providing inspiration, and understanding that relationships matter, will translate into the world of companies and how companies can leverage going forward to make sure the community stays alive. I don't know if you would agree.
No, I hear you, and I do believe it matters a lot. I think but it's perspective too, because some people instantly get it, feel it, know it, and other people have to learn it sometimes through trial and error. But I do think at the end of the day, relationships matter. I think they always have. That's sort of, for me, it's like I don't really joke about the fact that, social media to me, I do believe that prehistoric cave drawings is an example of social media. Granted, it's very hard to share those drawings, but we see them now. And I remember growing up in the 80s when I was dating, I'd meet somebody and listen to the music that they like, and I used to make mixtapes and share them. And that was my example of being social with media. And, and I do those things today. And I think that there's it's not really conflicting, but on one level, I think the world of social media has opened up and brought the world closer. On a technical level, we have 7.3, 7.4 billion people on Earth now. I'm just curious, in the last year, have any of you who are active on Facebook or Twitter or some social network have seen a status update from a friend and felt an emotional response based on what you read? Any of you? Right? And those of you maybe not be alive. Okay. The thing is, something magical is going on if we're able to use the internet and to share and express and connect on an emotional level. It's different. We've never had that before, ever. We're able to connect people, and so in many countries which don't have even good telephone service, they have people are connected. And we're living in a world right now where on a human level, we have a chance to connect the souls of many more people together now than ever before in our history. And my fundamental belief is that the activation of social has a chance to bring people, doesn't matter, non-denominational, doesn't matter who they are, where they're from, but as human beings, we have a chance to feel, to connect, to share and engage in ways we never could before. And it's because of these platforms. And I believe that represents a very subtle change, whether it's spiritual or whatever you want to call it, but there's something that's happening deep inside that is changing everything else around us. And we may not see that effects for years, but the fact that we're able to convey emotions and feel those emotions. It's one thing to write something, but to feel it and to act on it is something which is very different. We've never really had that before, and I think that's a fundamental shift in how we all communicate. Some of it intuitively, but some of it really emotionally, and some of it just, I don't know what to put it, but it's something very interesting that's happening. And I think that as a basis then allows many other things to happen, because we're learning to feel as human beings. We're learning to share and express that we're not alone, that we're connected. Every time there's natural disasters, I almost feel like the world wakes up. And for many times, doesn't matter where you're from, people kick in and they help because they can. And this ability to feel and to share emotional, it's both grief and excitement. I mean, I cry sometimes when I don't want to cry now, but I feel the energy of stuff and I react to it emotionally when I read it. And I'm not alone. And so also for tears of joy and being able to express that. And I think that, if you're a clever marketer, if you could actually invoke emotions through social and connect the dots all the way around, pure magic. In LA, I guess, so I don't know where Nielsen is based, but you guys were talking about Twitter before. In Israel, Twitter's not really a major player, but I thought it was really interesting that Nielsen ratings, which monitors the popularity of television shows, they're finally now going to the Twitter sphere to actually rate. I think they should have done this 7 years ago or 6 years ago, but they're actually now rating TV shows not so much on what viewership is, but what the Twitter response is, because people are reacting emotionally sometimes to what they're watching on TV. And I think it's a sort of a leading indicator that something else is going on. And have you guys experienced this?
Yeah, so I really love where you're going with this, because, linking it back to the question of the title of the panel, which is, have we reached the summit? The reality, if we are able to convert that emotion into action, then we have, I'm very hopeful about the future. We say the future is doom and gloom and, everything is fucked up. And the reality, no, it's not. Because for the first time, we have the ability through social communities to actually address some of the real challenges of the world. One of the panelists yesterday said one of the biggest problems of the world is that nobody is working on the biggest problems of the world. But, thanks to community management, thanks to everything that's happening with social media, if you're able to turn these emotions into actions, then you can really address this. And more, the beauty of Unilever, I don't want to, publicize too much Unilever here, but we have, committed to a lot on sustainable living on several of our brands. So for instance, we have a brand of soap called Lifebuoy, which really, basically, Lifebuoy, it's called Lifebuoy because it basically kills germs and saves the lives of lots of people, children in particular, help them basically get through the difficulties when you're a kid, in some countries getting to the age of 5. Well, through social media community management, you can engage people in actually knowing about it, caring about it, and doing something about it.
It's pretty interesting if you see what's all about the open data movement and the ideation platform movement. It's the power of the crowd. You see what Austin City Hall, you see what Paris is doing with Connection Platform. They ask to people throughout a digital platform, what should we do with this bridge? What should we do with this place? And they ask the people to tell them what should they do. They use the power of the crowd. Inside our enterprise, inside many enterprises, social networks destructs the top to bottom approaches. And every employee, low-based employee, can participate. Everybody can participate. It really destroys the top to bottom approaches, and it's cool.
Because what happens is that everyone has a voice, and everyone's voice matters. And I think that's sort of the disruption that actually when people realize that you democratize access to the people, and we're able to disintermediate the channels that pre-existed, that changes everything. And it's that positive disruption that represents a force of nature, which, again, I think has always been there at some level, but the fact that we can connect communities together and people can realize they're not alone, and you can take this political, but I'm not going to, but just on an emotional side, being able to invoke stuff. And the trouble with some of this is, particularly when you get emotional, is companies look for bottom lines. And for them, it's not inspiration, it's return on investment. And I believe that, and I dare not say something negative about some tech startups I know, but I don't believe the analytics exist yet to prove why we invest in social media. I think emotionally we understand it. I think we can see some bottom line indications why it makes sense. But there's a lot, and maybe because when you're writing history, it's very hard to have a perspective while the history is happening to understand why we did things. You only could look back. It's hard to be in the stream of consciousness while it's happening. But I do believe that the real analytics that will prove the effectiveness of what we do are being created now. Because it's only after this phenomenon has started for 7 years, whatever it is, we start to understand, to show why we should invest in these things. Because in the early days, people that were early advertisers on these social platforms, because they went to the boss for a blank check, they got it. The social companies benefited a lot, the companies not so much. But it's only now that we're starting to understand these dynamics. So, should you be making a commitment of your marketing budget, 100% of it to social, 50% to social, whatever? I don't know yet, but I do believe that we're not able yet to understand the effectiveness of where this is. We know that if we're not there, we feel like we're naked and bare, we should be there, but it's really more guidance by gut, not so much by numbers. And I think there's this balance between showing real, because I believe in return on inspiration, return on innovation. ROI, the old ROI has been there, done that, but some companies, they want to see numbers. And, how do you, from a business side of it, how do you balance between spending the time on doing things that connect to the soul and that are moving communities, to people who want to say, that's interesting, but show me bottom line results? How do you deal with that?
So as LinkedIn, I only am an observer of how brands deal with that. So to me, if we look at it from a marketing perspective, all of us who've been working in marketing for more than 10 years, we all know that this is a really exciting time to be living, because social allows us to do what marketing really is, which is a mix of art and science, which is exactly what you described earlier. The art part is creating the emotion, right? Creating the bond and the relationships with our consumer, which, as we said, is becoming increasingly personal. The science part is the amount of data that we now have in order to create the most engaging experience at the right moment. If you think about it, what's the right time to advertise a new car? It may not necessarily be January, because you decided it's going to be January. Maybe the best moment to advertise a new car is going to be 3 months after you signed up for a new job. Now, with the amount of data, which is 10 years worth of data, you can be more relevant, you can be smarter in the moment you advertise, and enabling data into your marketing strategy can create a better attention. Because as you all know, one of the critical challenges of marketeers is what we call the shortage of attention. There's been a lot of brain research about attention, and I've seen a number of interesting pieces here during DLD Tel Aviv about measuring attention. With all these devices that are asking for our attention, with text messaging asking us to reply instantly, right? Who's going to wait 24 hours to reply to a text message, right? We have lots of things which calls for attention. The new challenge for marketers is to be smarter about the right moment to talk to people. So blending art with science is going to be creating the inspiration and creating the emotional bond, as we described, and leveraging data to talk at the right moment to the right people. And I'm giving you the car example because a typical typically a question that we're being asked on LinkedIn by brands is when's the right moment to talk to people about cars, about new banking account. And one of the examples that personally I felt was one of the most successful case study of social media usage is actually from Dove, which made me really excited to see that Marc was on the panel today. Because Dove was overall one of this year, 2013, biggest success in social media because it created the right mix between art and science, which is why, if you don't mind, Jeff, if you don't mind, I would like Marc to tell the Dove story. I don't know how many of you have seen the Dove story? Only 3-4 people. Maybe worth showing it, Marc?
So yeah, so I mean, basically what we did on Dove was on this whole, basically the strategy of the brand is a lot to help women deal with beauty not as a source of anxiety, but as a source of confidence. So the whole dealing with the issue of self-esteem. And I'm actually surprised because there were, several hundred million people who saw it.
How many?
Several hundred million.
700 million, okay.
Several hundred, not seven, sorry. And I'm surprised that nobody saw this ad basically called Sketches, where you see, a FBI artist sketching women, and women actually discovering the difference between a portrait done from their description of themselves or from the description of themselves by somebody who knows them. Very, very emotional response, which went in just a few days, global, and completely viral. So it really used the power of sharing. It was amazing to hear the way people actually were talking about how they encountered that piece of content. Sometimes a husband sharing it with a wife sharing it with her husband, because it was something that was no longer, women, looking at it themselves, but making a cultural conversation around self-esteem and beauty and confidence.
How much did it cost to produce that video?
Not that much, because the reality, it was a piece of content that was done more of the social experiment to see, if you asked women to describe themselves, whether there was a risk that they would actually reduce through their own confidence, their own self-esteem, the way they look at themselves. There is a fundamental insight that, if two women look at one another, they always find that the other one is more beautiful than them. And of course, for guys, it's the opposite.
But in terms of, but in terms of is it millions of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars, like just ballpark?
No, it's, I don't know that we've discllosed any number, but the issue is not the cost.
No, because what happens, of course, after you run a campaign like that, how many people say now, I want my video, how often have you heard, I want my video to go viral?
Yeah, and how many?
And how often do you make videos viral, or is it something else?
No, to me, the point is, that's why I'm saying it's not about the money, it's about the insight and making sure that you capture something that's truthful before. And it's not, Dove did it before, but before Dove embraced as a brand this issue of the fact that, there is a growing concern, and I am a father of 2 daughters, and I saw them both when they were 14, 15, going from the, it's okay to take a picture of me, to, no, Dad, don't take a picture of me. So it's a real concern which we have created as a society, and until Dove embraced this issue of, beauty having become more and more a source of anxiety, no brand, nobody, not just brand, nobody was having that conversation.